Hello, it's me, Nearly Nova. I am here in a random park in Wisconsin, surrounded by copious amounts of snow. It's also currently 3 degrees outside Fahrenheit, which translates approximately to go f yourself in Celsius. It translates into freeze to death, actually, see if I care. And today we're going to be throwing some snowballs at some targets on a tarp to determine what my winter TBR is. Oh, you've lost the plot. This idea is so ridiculous. Yeah, it is. And what of it, okay? I, for one, think that we're going to have a great time. But before we get started with this wonderful adventure, I'm just going to go retreat indoors for a second to talk about the sponsor for today's video, which is Book of the Month. How do I love thee, Book of the Month? Let me count the ways. I love thee for your carefully curated selection of only the best and the brightest new releases each month. I love thee for your generous skip policy that protects me in the coldest of nights when not even those carefully curated selections warm the metaphorical blaze in my heart. I love thee for your reader's guarantee, the strong armor that protects me from a book that I hate with the guarantee of a new book in the next month's box that I hopefully will not also hate. I love thee for all of the ways that you help me love others through use of your myriad gift options. I love thee, of course, for your hats, of which I am beginning to acquire quite a few. And of course, I love thee for sending me my current 2 picks. Good Omens, The Return of the King, B.K. Borison, who I previously gave the elusive romance 5 stars the last time I got a Book of the Month book by her back in January, but this time in a holiday rom-com featuring the ghost of Christmas past falling for one of his charges. And then a little bit more grim, Dark Sisters, which is a novel that follows 3 generations of women who all have ties to a religious cult, and also a strong and powerful dark magic, the likes of which we've rarely seen before. And if you would like to love something as much as I love Book of the Month this season, or even better, if you have a friend or a family member in your life who simply cannot seem to stop reading anything that they can get their grubby little hands on, I strongly recommend using the code HOLLY to get your very first Book of the Month book for only $5, with the addition, of course, of one such lovely hat as well. Thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. Let's get back to it. Hello, welcome back. You're probably wondering how the fuck this is going to work. Honestly, me too. I'll send you back to Inside Me, who has a better idea of what the rules of this actually are, to give you an explanation of what we're doing. Okay, hello, it's me from several hours in the future. Let me explain to you how this is going to work. This is me with a little hat, and I am throwing snowballs at a tarp that from above, this is the bird's eye view of the tarp looks like this. I'm going for this zone, which I felt would be relatively difficult for me to hit because I don't have great hand-eye coordination, famously, but as a result of that, I didn't make up a fail consequence for missing the little bullseye here because I would just be failing every single throw until I got a take that actually landed in the center. I have 9 categories with 7 options each, and the option in the center of the bullseye is the option that I would most like to read. That's like my reward angle, but we're doing this for 9 rounds, and in lieu of having a failure consequence like I did in bowling, one of the categories is like a novelty viral books I would probably not otherwise read category. So there's going to be at least something inside of this video for those of you that just want the drama. In retrospect, after drawing this out, I feel like it's actually fairly intuitive. I probably did not need to explain to you the rules of throwing something at a target. Yeah, this is what we're doing to get into the winter spirits. Is this the dumbest idea of all time? Maybe. The process of filming this video was, you know, it was up and down. The camera quality is a little bit janky sometimes, but you have to lock in. You have to enjoy the ride, okay? This is a found footage winter TBR. But with all of that said, the only other item of housekeeping I have is that the only book that is remaining from my last TBR that will be added automatically to my winter TBR is Blood of Hercules, which I actually have a plan to read this month. So honestly, by the time I post my wrap up with some of the other books from my last TBR, this might not even be relevant anymore, but at the time of filming, I have not read this yet. Everything else though, I got to, which is pretty cool. I mean, I guess that's the natural result of doing a summer TBR and then just like not doing a fall TBR again because I felt behind, but it's fine. It's fine, it worked out. We cashed in. But anyways, all of that boring bullshit aside, what are we reading? The first category is called Lives as Short as a Wisconsin Winter Day, referencing, of course, the fact that the sun will be setting by 4 p.m., which probably is going to strike as I'm filming the rest of this video, so just be warned of that, I guess, if we switch to Inside Lights. And this category is basically just thriller and horror books. It's my spooky category, and the top pick for this category was You Weren't Meant to Be Human, which is the new Andrew Joseph White White book, his first adult release that I've been really looking forward to ever since it was announced. But outside of that, the other 6 with their colors assigned to each cell in the spreadsheet on screen, we have Hazelthorn, All the Colors of the Dark, Compound's Fracture, Where Sleeping Girls Lie, The Return of Ellie Black, and The House Across the Lake. Just a full mix, a full spectrum of possible picks. Okay, back to me in the snow. Hello, it's Outdoor Lexi again. I don't see the world from this angle very often, just blinded by the vitamin D of the sun. It's time to throw our first snowball. That was fucked up. Honestly, the snow I actually don't think is all that good for making snowballs, but it's good enough. It's good enough for our purposes. If you think I know what makes good snowball snow, I will say you're lying to yourself, considering I go outside in the snow a maximum of 2 times per year. But I just feel like this is not ideal. Fuck. Dude, it's crumbling. Our snowball. Look at that. Wow. I'm probably going to miss the board at least a few times, but I have no consequence for that because I think I'm going to be missing the board a lot. This is for thrillers, I think, and horror books. Oh! What did I hit? Ref! What did I hit? Okay, so there's been a challenge on the play. We're gonna have to go back into the footage to learn whether or not I hit the stars or the navy. I think I hit the stars, personally. From my angle, it looks like I hit the stars, which is a very auspicious start to this video. If I hit the stars, it is You Weren't Meant to Be Human, the new Andrew Joseph White book, which would be awesome. And if I did not hit the stars, if I hit the navy, it's The Return of Ellie Black. Time to clock in and watch the replay on that one so we can adjudicate which bag was actually hit. This will happen several times this video. There were a lot of shots that were kind of fringe and in between bags, and every time we're gonna be watching it together, live, frame by frame, to determine what the rightful book actually is. So let's run this back in 1x. Honestly, I think it's already obvious that this is stars, but if you insist, because my camera person so firmly disagreed with me, we can go frame by frame here. Watch that ball come in. Oh, there it is. Do you guys see it? And boom, look at that impression on the white star. Somehow narrowly missing the green there too. That would have made things complicated, but clear cut white star, even though all of the shrapnel that came off of it might have you thinking otherwise. I am really, really excited to read this book for lots of reasons, but the biggest one that's coming to mind right now is Andrew Joseph White historically has only written young adult books. This is his adult horror debut. And one thing about the fact that he's only previously written young adult books that astounds me is how gruesome and like violent and pretty visceral the imagery is inside of his books already. Like, he definitely does not shy away from body horror. He doesn't shy away from pretty serious topics in even a genre that you would think would be less predisposed to allowing that kind of thing. And so seeing where he decides to go when those bumpers are gone, when he's like truly unleashed and he's allowed to write whatever he wants to write without any fear or regard to writing towards a younger audience, like, this is definitely his work without guardrails. And I've heard some pretty good things about this since it came out. Classic TBR disclaimer that I have not actually read these books yet, so I don't really know what's going on. Whatever I tell you about the synopsis or the plot of these stories is based solely on the blurb of the book and whatever whisperings I've heard online. Just in general in this video, there is some level of inaccuracy that is practically guaranteed. I'll correct myself whenever I actually review them. Anyways, when it comes to what this is actually about, this is pitched as Alien meets Midsommar, which is just a truly fascinating and harrowing combination of things. And it seems to follow this guy who's living inside of West Virginia in this slightly post-apocalyptic, post-alien invasion version of the world, where a bunch of aliens have come to town. And those aliens, in exchange for granting you safety, protection, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, whatever, all that they really want in return is a steady supply of dead people for them to do whatever aliens in this universe do with dead people. So the main character of this book is one such steward of one such colony of aliens, and he is just minding his own business, living his life. When he ends up, he's trans, he ends up getting pregnant unexpectedly. And the hive, for some reason, all of these aliens like really, really want this baby to be born. So what he does next obviously has implications for himself, for the entire community of people, presumably for the status of the alien invasion on Earth. And the book overall, I get the impression, is situated very soundly in a canon that Andrew Joseph White is building for himself as somebody who is really, really good at writing body horror, at writing transformations and metamorphoses from one thing to one other thing inside of a horrific landscape. And he uses his skill at writing inside of those spaces to explore things like gender identity, sexuality, otherness, both in terms of neurodiversity and other reasons that you can feel completely let down by your community, religious trauma, cults, All of this stuff, these are things that Andrew Joseph White is very, very interested in practically all of his work. And this book seems to be an even more intense adult horror version of that. So really looking forward to this one. I was hoping I would get this. The next category after that, we have getting a brick for Christmas and feeling embarrassed. And I mean like the technological screen time brick that people put on their fridge now, not like a literal brick made of clay. If that's not clear. And in this category, the top star option is Heated Rivalry, which is a book that has just gone like super viral, in part because of the TV show, I think, but also a lot of people are reading the book. After that, the other 6, we have The Pucking Wrong Number, Heartless Hunter, Quicksilver, Zodiac Academy, Trial of the Sun Queen, and Neon Gods. Snowball number 2. Fuck. We're crumbling again. Oh no. Oh god, not on the pants, dude. It's so cold. Our second snowball. Look at her. This looks like a scoop of ice cream. That's how you know it's good. Ooh! You know, I don't even really think that we have to run this one back, but just in case you want to see it again, but in kind of slow motion, here we go. Look at that. Look at that arc. Let's go frame by frame. This one lands fast. Moment of impact. Almost got the light pink / orange, but just it barely nails the star. I need to go further away, dude. This is too fucking easy. I'm goated. I don't know what else to tell you. Call her Cat Winter Eversnow. Okay? That's what they called me on the streets growing up. What do we got? We got Heated Rivalry. I don't actually own a physical copy of Heated Rivalry yet, so I'll just put the cover on screen. If I'm being honest with you, I have completely avoided learning anything about this TV series or about the original book, but I know that it's hockey, and I know that it's super popular. I know that people are like losing their fucking minds over it right now. 2 things that I find immediately interesting about the Goodreads entry. First of all, the original cover of this book, which God, man, like the cartoon cover gets so much slander. It gets so much slander all of the time. And don't get me wrong, a lot of it is warranted. I too am kind of bored. I too think that we could be a little bit more creative sometimes. But when you compare it to shit like this, dude, jail! I want to know if these are like real people who specifically modeled for the Heated Rivalry cover, or if these are 2 stock photos that were like fused together and put onto the top of this book. I'm honestly not sure what option I would prefer, but yeah, that's fucking criminal. Anyways, the other thing that I find interesting about the Goodreads page for this is that it's actually the 2nd book in a series. And I always find it really fascinating when it's the 2nd book in a series that ends up becoming popular, because this has like almost 3 times as many ratings as the first book. I'm not going to be reading the first book. I'm not committing to that. I only want to read what's relevant to pop culture right now. But isn't that fascinating? And don't get me wrong, I imagine that these are interconnected standalones. It's not like you have to read the first book in the series to be able to understand the plot of the 2nd book. I guess sometimes that's true, but usually 90% of the time that's not the case. But still, I don't know, man. I find it interesting. What made people re-pick up this author who didn't like the first book? How did the 2nd book in a series blow past its original audience and into the mainstream? What did the author put in this one to set it apart, other than like 32 collective abs for the 2 male main characters? I guess we'll find out. Premise of this book looks like it is a hockey captain ex-hockey captain of 2 separate teams, maybe even rival teams inside of a competitive league. One of them is Russian for some reason, because of course, why not? Why not make him Russian? Oh, this is so good. Let me just read this to you. Boston Bears captain Ilya Rozanov is everything Shane's not. The self-proclaimed king of the ice. He's as cocky as he is talented. No one can beat him, except Shane. They've made a career on their legendary rivalry, but when the skates come off, the heat between them is undeniable. Why do I kind of fuck with it? It kind of sounds like a fun time. There's a reason why this was the star on the list. I feel like it's also just the most current thing that's blowing up right now, so that's cool. For once in my life, I'll actually read something before it's been popular for like 3 straight years. But the next category after that is Cozy Fantasy of Winter Healing, which, as you might guess, is a cozy fantasy category, except honestly I didn't have enough like high priority cozy fantasy books to fill out a whole 7-book list, so I also added in some young adult fantasy as well. Also a couple of books that are technically shelved as romance, and they're like paranormal fantasy romance. That's cozy to me, okay? This is my fucking list. It's my cozy fantasy category. If you're upset with what I'm classing as cozy fantasy, you can take it up with my lawyer, okay? He's free next Tuesday. You can make an appointment. Anyways, in the star section of this list, we have A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, which is the sequel to The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. I really liked that book when I read it last year. God, or maybe that was this year. year. Did I read that in January? That's crazy if true. Either way, I liked the first book in that series a lot. I found it very cozy. It wasn't like life-changing, but it was still really good. I'm excited to read whatever the author is putting out next, which in this case is a hotel book. Hotel instead of orphanage. But the other 6 books are in order: Mate, Sorcery and Small Magics, An Enchantment of Ravens, 6 Crimson Cranes, To Shape a Dragon's Breath, and The Spell Shop. A walk of shame to go clean up the tarp. Honestly, this is not that bad. Just do a little bit of, yeah, perfect. Wow, what a beautiful board. Who set that up? Who came up with that? Oh my God, wow. Yeah, get a load of that. We're gonna go further away because apparently I'm the best that there ever has been. Does that count? Okay, we'll run that back just because it's close to embarrass myself. The snowball's in the air, it's arcing. You can kind of see it on my sleeve there. And then it goes. And just fucking barely, dude. Look at that. That's by about 2 inches. Sad. You hate to see it. You can't blame me for thinking that hit. It does bounce on the pink, but that's obviously not enough. Do you like that? Can you tell from this far away that it's the best snowball you've ever seen in your life? Replay of the second throw, which I'll be honest with you is a little bit of a suspicious call on behalf of the 2 referees of this event, but you see me release it up in the air, right? And then we'll watch this in slow-mo. Here we go, she's landing. You might be like, where'd it go? It landed, I think, as close as it possibly could have to the bag while still sliding underneath it. So technically, I didn't hit either of these balls, but I ended up just calling it for purple/pink. Purple is what I called the category. That's why I keep calling it purple in the video. But I ended up calling it for purple because it just felt right. Like I hit in the exact same spot 2 times, and both times it kind of looked like it went to purple. So that was what led me to make that call. Yeah, I think that this means that I got purple for this category. It even stayed intact, dude. I can reuse this snowball. That's pretty nice. Work smart, not hard. Okay, purple is The Spell Shop. And what of it? Okay, this is another book that I don't actually own. I probably own 85% of the books I put in the categories for this video, but somehow I just kept continuously rolling things I had not bought for myself yet. So that is the way of gambling, I guess. It's the way of the dice. Anyways, I think that this is technically shelved as romantasy, but I always hear people talk about it in the same sentences as things like legends and lattes and you can't spell treason without T. Those silly little puns that fantasy authors throw into their cozy fantasies. It's always on the same lists as those things. A lot of cozy fantasy, honestly, I don't really know if it's 100% my thing because I get bored kind of easily, but this one seems better, honestly, in my opinion, than some of the other like really popular cozy fantasy books that I've heard about. So that's why it ended up here. Now it's what I'm reading. This book follows a magical librarian at a magical library who keeps track of all of the spells that are passing through this library until one day the library burns down. Really, really tragic, really, really sad. But the librarian is able to escape with a pretty large amount of books that were previously at the library. So she's kind of just carrying these spell books and making sure that they don't turn into ash. And in the aftermath of this disaster, which also happened during this general state of political turmoil for the realm, the librarian flees to this tiny little island that she grew up on many, many years ago that she never thought she would ever go home to see again. And when she's on that island, she decides to open up a shop. And inside of that shop, technically she's selling jam for some reason, like jelly jam type beat. But also underground, underneath this shell company that she has built for herself on side of this island, she's also running an unsanctioned spell shop and doing magic, even though I think somehow it's illegal and she's not supposed to. There's also a man in this town, her neighbor, of course, and he is hot and nice to her. What could happen there? I'm sure that you could probably guess. It seems like it probably has a little bit more going on inside of it than Legends and Lattes did, which is a book I did not like. I found it to be pretty boring. I feel like the premise of that book and what was promised generally when I was setting off to read it was very appealing to me, but I don't know, it didn't work. I feel like the book just read like a series of fetch quests. It was like a series of to-do list items that the main character just kept doing before she would then have to go and talk to a new NPC who she would befriend, and then she would do more fetch quests and then talk to more NPCs. Like it was such a bizarre book. But this one, it sounds like there's a little bit more going on inside of it. So I think it sounds pretty good. I've heard also pretty good things about this book from some of my friends. And yeah, that's The Spell Shop. Okay, I've turned on another light because it's 4 o'clock, so naturally, in Wisconsin, it's starting to get dark. The next category that we have, in contrast to cozy fantasy of winter healing, we have uncozy fantasy of darkness and frozen waste, which is any fantasy novel that I know has some kind of stakes. Most of these are like darker by a lot than the previous category. And in general, you will notice there's a lot of fantasy on my TBR because I love reading fantasy books during the winter. It's like my favorite time of year for escapism because I like Wisconsin most of the year, but during the winter, I feel like it can just become a dark, barren wasteland if you try to go outside. But it's really good ambiance for when you're reading inside and you're looking out at all of the snow and stuff. Peak fantasy reading hours. So that's why I have like 3 fantasy categories. But anyways, yeah, this is the second one. In order, the star pick for this category is The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow. And the only reason why this is here and not in the other category from later is because I've heard it actually does have stakes. But the reason beyond that why it's at the top of this category is that is the big book right now that a lot of the mutuals that I have on social media and a lot of my friends in real life have really, really, really been enjoying. And again, I feel like it's nice sometimes to be 2% more current than I normally am on this channel. But other than that, we have in order The Tainted Cup, A Memory Called Empire, The Dispossessed, The Sword of Kaigan, The Priory of the Orange Tree, and The Hurricane Wars, which is just, it's such a stacked category. Like all of these options, I would be more than happy to read.
This one's big. There are a lot of good books on this list. Who is she?
Another probably unnecessary replay, but I just kind of want to put this in slow-mo. And I'm winding up. I'm ready. And release. She's up in the air. Look at this. Look at that moment of impact. Almost right on target. That's like 4 inches right of center. Clear cut star. Look at that impression on that bag.
You know what? Maybe not being able to feel my toes actually makes me a stronger athlete. Ever think of that? Is there a category for throwing snowballs at shopping bags in the Winter Olympics? Because there should be. There should be. Okay, awesome. The top pick for this category was The Everlasting, which is the new, I think, Alex E. Harrow book. You love to see it. I'm the best that there's ever been. There's no other way to describe what's going on right now in the field.
Okay, so this is another book that I did not already own when I started filming this video. Literally any other book inside of this category is something that's on my backlog, but not this one. And I went to the bookstore to pick up all of the books from this list I did not already have, and this was in stock, but unfortunately, the epidemic of sprayed edges, I swear to God, as the only option that you could possibly buy, it needs to end. It needs to end. I don't even hate the color of the sprayed edges in the store version of this book. I feel like the color actually looks pretty nice, all things considered, with the rest of the colors that are on the cover, but it looks so cheap. The sprayed edges aren't even well done. Like, they're not even applied well all the way through. They're already patchy, and I haven't even bought the book yet. It hasn't even sat in my shelf and aged for several years. I cannot get behind buying most books with sprayed edges unless there is literally a gun to my head and I have no other options. So I'll probably be reading this on my Kobo, but what is this book about? Great question. I don't really know. This is another book that, because of all of the hype it's getting from my friends, and because it sounds like the kind of thing I would like based on who's reviewing it, the people that I trust really have enjoyed this, I have learned as little as humanly possible about this story. But based on the blurb, which I am reading for the first time right now, oh, okay, this is actually really cool. So this book follows a knight who is known through legend as like one of the best knights that there's ever been. Her name was Una Everlasting, which is kind of on the nose. And centuries after she lived and did all of the things that she's known for and died and became a legend, a historian whose name is Owen is like really, really fixated on her and wants to learn everything that there could possibly be to learn about this person and the life that she lived inside of history. And so he goes into the archives, he tries to puzzle together all of the pieces, and then, I don't know, man, like implied time travel, implied somehow they're able to interact across literal centuries of time. This sounds like something that I would really like. I tend to quite enjoy stories that are about stories. I like books about books, books about legends, but also stories that have time travel as a conceit and like dimensional hopping and stuff like that. Again, I don't really know what the mechanics of this are, but it definitely sounds up my alley. Like, listen to this from the blurb. Una and Owen are tangled together in time, bound to retell the same story over and over again, no matter what it costs. But that story always ends the same way. If they want to rewrite Una's legends, if they want to tell a different story, they'll have to rewrite history itself. Me when it's love so strong that it's literally bending reality. Me when we can do anything, including but not limited to freeing ourselves from the shackles of time itself, but only provided we are holding on to the other person. It just sounds really good. But next up, after that, the next category, we have, oh boy, a holiday romance. I will be reading
A holiday rom-com, which honestly is another category on the level of like viral books, because 0% chance I would be doing this if I wasn't assigning it to myself maliciously on my TBR. With the one exception actually of the top book on this list, The Star Pick, which I talked about earlier in this video as part of my ad, but unironically, I do really want to read this year because I loved the first thing I read by this author. And that book, of course, is Good Spirits. That's the star pick for this category. But the other 6 in order are Holiday Romance, Kiss Her Once for Me, A Merry Little Meet Cute, Window Shopping, The Mistletoe Motive, and then, just for fun, I included for purple/pink, go to Barnes & Noble and buy the holiday romance with the worst cover. And then that's on the TBR. So that's also in this category. What could I get? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I guess now actually is a good time to tell you, not to flex, but when I was in 7th and 8th grade, I was a pitcher on the girls softball team. I know, you're like, how is this fair? How is this a remotely fair way to randomly determine in an arbitrary way your winter TBR, given the fact that you have a clear history of brilliance? I don't know, man. Like, look, was I good? No. But that talent that was born on the softball field that day has blossomed into the warrior that I've since become. A 5th snowball has hit the Pentagon. We're going. Let's go even further away. You know, I've like proven my excellence time and time again. Whew! Was that purple? My camera person seems to not be paying attention to what I've hit with my amazing shots, my true shot barrage. So 2 options, we think it's either red or purple. This is actually a massive difference. If it's red, it's if it's red, it's holiday romance. I forgot to put this in. If it's purple, go to Barnes & Noble and buy the holiday romance with the worst cover.
Okay, so this one is actually kind of spicy. There's a reason that there was debate in the referee booth, and we're gonna watch this frame by frame. Okay, it's very important that we watch this frame by frame because there's no other way to adjudicate it. Let's go back up so you can follow it. So it's in the air. First of all, look at that arc. Look at that air time in the baby blue up north. It's in the air. It's on its way down. It's blending in right now, but it comes down and you can see it and it looks like it's going to land on red. It really looks like it's going to land on red, but then the moment of impact is actually on both of them. Let's do a zoom here. I don't think there's any way to really tell where it landed first. If it hit the red before it hit the purple and then ended up kind of sliding down in that millisecond of time, I don't know. This is the limits of the technology that I have, but I really think that you have to give it to pink. Even if you could make an argument that maybe it technically landed on red first, so much more of it is on the purple bag. We're talking like 85% of this snowball on the moment of impact was on purple, and that's enough. I feel like that's where it has to go. But this was a close one. This is maybe the most fringe case of this video. So yeah, I had to go to Barnes & Noble so I could go to a holiday romance table near me, which I put this option in completely as a bit, and the fact that I actually rolled it was pretty insane to me. But I went to Barnes & Noble and only half of the holiday table was actually romance novels. The other half was irrelevant to the cause. It was all like contemporary fiction bullshit. And honestly, most of the covers were not that bad. They're your stereotypical cartoon romance cover, but I mean, whatever, we can take those. It's not a crime. For my tastes, personally, I thought that it was clearly a decision between 2, the first of which being A Very Merry Bromance, which I'm familiar with this author. I know that she writes books about men who are in a book club and read romance novels and use the fact that they read romance novels to like connect with their wives or something. I'm pretty sure that's the premise of most of the books that this woman writes, but that premise is definitely implied by the fact that there is a cartoon cover on the cartoon cover of my romance novel. That's just despicable to me. So yeah, that was a narrow second place, but the obvious worst one, in my opinion, was, of course, Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal by Megan Quinn. I really could list a bunch of things that I hate about this cover, including but not limited to the font choices, just the title in general. I feel like the title in general is a crime against me specifically. Also just the fact that these people on the cover truly are just giving stock image. But I think that even if this hadn't been enough, which I'll be honest with you, it probably would have just been enough with the cover, the fact that this book has sprayed edges, it has spreages, is just truly unforgivable. Again, the fucking epidemic of sprayed edges, it needs to stop. I walked out of the bookstore today, which, by the way, it was the second bookstore that I visited looking for all of the books on this list I did not already own. But I walked out of this bookstore with a copy of this, which I don't know what these garlands are supposed to have on them, but I can't not see popcorn. It looks like popcorn and red polka dots threaded onto a garland. It is absolutely just a despicable
choice. I wouldn't hate these sprayed edges maybe if the flowers looked a little bit less like popcorn, if it was a hardcover book, but again, on a paperback, what are you doing? What's even the point? Do people really go out to the store and think to themselves, yeah, like I'm gonna get this paperback Hallmark movie Christmas romance novel on a whim just because I really, really like the popcorn garland sprayed edges? Like, are there real people out in the world making this decision? And even if they are, why do the rest of us have to suffer for it, dude? Why do the rest of us have to fucking debase ourselves to either buying books that look like this, that consistently have sprayed edges? Everything has sprayed edges now. Like the amount of, specifically at that Barnes & Noble, the amount of sprayed, full sprayed edges tables of books, it's not a special edition thing anymore. It's just like new releases of things get sprayed edges. I feel like a boomer who is just spitting in the face of technological progress or whatever, because clearly I guess people like them or they wouldn't be constantly mass producing fucking ugly sprayed edges all of the time. But like, I just want to go back, man. I miss the flip phone, okay? I miss my nice, normal copies of books. I don't want to have to wait like 9 months for the Everlasting to come out in paperback if I like it to be able to own a physical copy. But I will not be buying it with single color sprayed edges. That is truly my biggest pet peeve. It's like sprayed edges on paperbacks followed closely by single colored hardcover sprayed edges. And disclaimer, I actually do like a sprayed edge on a special edition book when the sprayed edge is not only not patchy, it has to actually be good and applied evenly all the way through the edges of the book, which should be a baseline, right? Like you would think that would be a baseline for all of these first edition special hardcovers that are shipped out to Barnes & Nobles nationwide, right? You would think that at least that they would be evenly applied, but apparently not. Anyways, as long as they're evenly applied and they're like somewhat high effort, like they have actual art on them, an attempt was made to do something fun with the edge, then I can get behind a sprayed edge. Never let the record show that I was not fair, but this shit just looks cheap. It's not special because there's no normal edition of the book to compare it to, and it's also not special because if it was actually a special edition that merited whatever increase in price is passed on to the consumer because of these sprayed edges, it would be hardcover. It would be hardcover if it were actually a special edition. Paperbacks are supposed to be the daily driver, okay? They're supposed to be the book of the everyman. This is not for the everyman. Okay, I need to move on. Anyways, I thought this one looks the ugliest at the store, which is why I bought it, and now it's on our TBR. Yippee. What's this book about? Let's learn together. Nothing says I love you like trespassing, public humiliation, and a town-wide Christmas spectacle to win your crush back. Atlas, Maxheimer did not sign up for this. 1 minute, he's anxiously trying to keep his family's Christmas tree farm. No, he actually runs a Christmas tree farm. He's anxiously trying to keep his family's Christmas tree farm from imploding. The next, he's passed out in the snow after getting clocked by a suspiciously strong bottle of soda. Enter Betty, new in town, of course, full of holiday cheer, of course, and helping her uncle open a rival tree farm next door. Oh no, 2 tree farms in one small Midwestern snow-covered town? What's going to happen? Okay, I'm gonna keep going. Helping her uncle open a rival tree farm next door, Max is convinced she's out to destroy everything Evergreen Farm stands for. Betty thinks Max might be one sleigh short of a winter parade, if you know what I'm saying. Cue the holiday chaos between blizzards, blown reputations, wildly misguided romantic plots, and one stolen ornament with a seriously tragic backstory. This small-town war turns into something far messier and much more delicious than either of them expected. Wow, what a treat. Nothing else to say about this one. I will read this book around Christmas in between Hallmark movies that my mother makes me watch with her, and I will report back on how this went. Anyways, moving on. The next category is cold hard facts. Obviously, this is nonfiction, and in the star slot for this category, we have Braiding Sweetgrass, which is a memoir that I've been meaning to read for a long time in general, but also my best friend read it recently, and she really recommended it to me, so I do occasionally have to read books for the people that I love. It's kind of like a necessary part of being a friend and being socially connected into the fabric of a community, so that's at the top of the list for this one. But the other 6 books in the category are in order: Cultish, Evicted, Stamps from the Beginning, Quiet, One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This, and The Hot Zone.
Dude, are you seeing this now? Look at this. Look at this. How are you supposed to make snowball with this fuck-ass snow? I don't know, maybe this is a skill issue. I'm probably gonna get a comment that's like, actually, that is the best possible snowball snow for the following 4 reasons that I will type out in several paragraphs inside of your YouTube comment section. And you know what? Fair enough, okay? Fair enough. I don't want a solution. I just want a vent. All right, the next category is cold hard facts. Right? There's not even a debate this time.
Shout out to that height. Look at that. It's still above the skyline when it's passing into vision through the swings. That's incredible. And a clean landing on Navy. Look at that moment of impact. Look at that. That is picture perfect.
Navy, good sir. What is the Navy option? Oh, this is sick. Okay.
The Navy option is one day everyone will have always been against this.
This is a book that came out this year that has been getting a lot of press recently, especially in my circles. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure where you would classify this book in terms of genre, because my impression, based on what I knew about this book before I went to pick it up, is it was more of a historical political thesis against Western Empire. But then in my indie, it was shelved in neither of those places. It was shelved in biography. So I think it has some kind of like memoir component to it as well. But no matter what genre it technically is, thematically, to my knowledge, that's still where it's anchored. I know that the foundation for this book is the ongoing genocide in Gaza, and also just all of the other things that Palestinians have been going through since many, many years before 2023. But the book also expands beyond that to talk about a lot of other issues that have happened, both domestically inside of the US and also internationally as a result of US hegemony. And again, just making this claim that Western Empire through history has systemically failed to work for the best interests of all of the people that it's supposed to be protecting, even when it's supposed to be protecting people, even when they're allegedly inside of the empire, right? Like the empire is still failing all sorts of marginalized communities who are not immediately in power. And yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about this recently from a couple of my friends who picked it up over the summer, and it's supposed to be like a really important book to read right now with everything that's been going on this whole year, this whole decade. Honestly, this whole time I've been alive inside of this country, I feel like there's always been bullshit happening internationally and inside of this country. So that's on the list, and it's supposed to be really, really good if you want to pick it up with me. But after that, and shifting back into the world of fiction, we have our next category, which is called Winter Break or Mental Breakdown, otherwise known as my lit fic category. And the star pick for this category is only arguably, I think, literary fiction. I do believe in stores it's shelved as a mystery, but I've always gotten the impression that it's more of a literary thriller than anything. And that book is Wild Dark Shore by, I think, Charlotte McConaughey is her name. If I'm butchering that, I'm sorry. But I've gotten like 3 separate books by this woman recommended to me very, very highly. And this is the one that I find the most interesting. So that's why it's at the top. But after that, the other 6 in order are Penance, If I Had Your Face, James, Interesting Facts About Space, Interior Chinatown, and Ripe.
Lock in. I personally don't feel like I've missed. Some would say that I missed the purple 2 times. I don't think I've missed once, and that was not in the plans for this video, so we're actually getting out of here in record time, which is nice considering the fact that it's currently 3 degrees outside. Oh no, dude, we've lost the snowball. That's what I get. The weather's like, I heard you talking about me. Fuck. You know, it had to happen eventually. Don't, stop, don't zoom in. Okay.
First of all, let's just get a moment of appreciation for this 360. Look at that. That's confidence right there. That's a level of confidence I did not have when I threw the first ball this morning. She releases the ball after a flawless 360, and look at that. Just barely clipping the edge of the blue bag, but look at that impression. That is a 3-dimensional impression. That snowball had some power. Before, after, me versus the guy he tells me not to worry about. A goated debut, a woaded sequel. Wicked 1, Wicked 2. What? Who said that?
Okay, blue is Interesting Facts About Space. Not bad.
Okay, another book by an author I've been meaning to read for a long time. I feel like that's always the theme of every TBR that I ever do, because so many authors are people I've been meaning to read for a very long time. But this is a book by Emily Austen. The big one that you might have heard about by her is Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead. I feel like that was her most successful book, and it always sounded up my alley, but I never picked it up for some reason. But this one I actually picked up and added to my library because it sounded especially up my alley. This book is a character study that follows a queer autistic woman who spends most of her life like really, really hyper fixated on space. That's her special interest. That's what she's into. It's what she knows a lot about. And as it goes in lit fic, she's just kind of living her life and balancing a bunch of really complex, kind of horrible relationships with family members when suddenly she starts to get the impression that somebody is stalking her. And it leads her down this complete spiral of paranoia as she's trying to figure out if it's all in her head or not, which of course proceeds to threaten to impact the rest of her life. All of these relationships with her absent father, with her half sisters, with her new romantic prospect that she is trying to desperately manage. I feel like talking about why this book is up my alley is just a complete self-report, but I love reading about women who are a little bit crazy, who are constantly questioning not only whether or not they are a good person who deserves to be alive, but also if they're crazy and if everything that ever happens to them is kind of sort of just in their head. Like, that's a spiral that I really enjoy in literary fiction because, I don't know, maybe it reminds me of something in my life. Probably not though, like that would be crazy to admit online. And yeah, I mean, I feel like that's really everything I need to say about this book, but I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to finally pick it up. Okay, moving on to the second to last category, we have the last fantasy category, which is called At Least the Tower I'm Trapped In Has Central Heating. These are my romanticides. This is the category that I decided not to put The Everlasting in because of what I'd heard about that book. But I don't know, some people might be mad at me for that. In my defense, I don't claim to know anything. Again, I haven't actually read these books. I'm just going based off of vibes. But we have another full romantasy category to go through. And these are all also romantasies that I think I will like. There are definitely viral romantasy novels that are on my radar as things that just might not be 100% for me. But these 7 are all, I think, strong contenders for solid fantasy romance, solid romantasy. So at the top here, we have The Jasad Heir, which is a book that I feel like my friends are holding me at knife point until I actually pick it up. One friend in particular. Honestly, this is in the star tier just for like my own well-being, for my own peace of mind, so that way I don't get knifed in the stomach before the end of the year if I don't read this book. But after that, the other 6 we have in order: Wild Reverence, The Night in the Moth, This Monster of Mine, Daughter of the Moon Goddess, The Second Death of Locke, and Immortal.
I am so fucking cold, dude. The snowball. Look at her. She's beauty, she's grace. Wonderful. I'm gonna do like a running shot on this one, okay? You're not ready for this. Wow. That was kind of sick. Was that not kind of sick? I actually hit it.
This one's also, I think, pretty clear cut, but just look at this air time. Look at the little hop. Ooh, I'm throwing that. Wow, all the way up there. This moment of impact is fantastic. Let's do a little zoom for this. It just completely stops being a solid as soon as it hits a hard surface. Look at how it melts. That's crazy. By the time the rest of it comes out from underneath the star bag, it's just completely powder.
Red in romantasy is Wild Reverence.
Okay, Wild Reverence. This is the newest book by Rebecca Ross, who you probably know from Divine Rivals. She wrote that duology. And I never actually finished the Divine Rivals series, which maybe is something I should get around to doing eventually, but I really liked the first book when I read it like 2 years ago or something. And I was compelled by the fact that this is an adult book by the same author, because in that series, I feel like there were themes and topics that would have worked arguably a little bit better inside of an adult fantasy world. Even though the book overall had a kind of cozy tone, there are pretty dark things going on. It's a book about war, right? It's basically a book about wartime reporting. And just thematically, there was a darkness to that book that made me wonder what the author would be capable of in an adult setting. But to my knowledge, this book follows a messenger god. It's a woman who is basically the god equivalent of UPS. 24/7, rain, shine, sleet, or snow, she will get from place to place. And 10 years prior to the start of this story, she has a run-in with a mortal man whose name is Vincent, who somehow I think she was like meeting inside of his dreams. Maybe that's how she travels from place to place to deliver her messages. I'm not sure. But because of that, he ends up in his darkest hour writing her this letter, begging her to come and actually meet him in person, which for reasons that I'm sure we'll find out, he never responds to. But now, 10 years have passed, Vincent is meaner now. He's not as naive, he's jaded, and he's been through some shit. But for some reason, the main character, Matilda, 10 years after ghosting this man, ends up having a letter that she has to deliver to him. So they cross paths again, uncertain what happens after that point. I mean, it's kind of implied by the blurb that there's some kind of other drama politically going on inside of the world of the gods. So maybe they have to like smuggle or something, or like organize a revolution together, or just be unwitting allies in some way before they fall in love again. But that's the premise. And honestly, just the fact that they are writing letters to each other is enough to me. I mean, it was the same exact thing I liked about Divine Rivals. I love a letter. I love a correspondence over time. So yeah, definitely pretty excited to read this one as well. But finally, we have arrived at the last category, which I have called New Year's Resolutions, aka another category where I am finishing the many series that I have started but never finished. And at the top of this category, kind of in bad faith to the rest of the category because it's not even a finished series, but the second book in the Hierarchy series, which is The Will of the Many, that came out like a month and a half ago. It's called The Strength of the Few. I have heard nothing but really, really good things. I remember how I felt when I read the first book in that series like a year and a half ago. It was awesome. I felt like I could punch God. That's at the top of this list. But the other 6 books are A Prayer for the Crown Shy, which is the second book in the Solemn for the Wild Built series. It's like short novellas. Then we have The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which is The Serpents and the Wings of Night 2, Electric Boogaloo. Muse of Nightmares, which follows Strange the Dreamer. Vengeful, which follows Vicious. The Last Graduate, which follows A Deadly Education. And then just tossing it in again as a bit, we have The Reaper, which follows The Predator. A mafia romance that I read like a year and a half ago that I still kind of want to know how it ends.
This is the last shot, the last chance to prove ourselves on the field today. This is the snowball that we will be throwing. Oh, fuck. Oh, no, 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 dude, it's crumbling in my hands. Oh my God, I'm already choking. The last category is unfinished series. I don't remember what I called it and I'm too scared to check. The last shot is a safety hazard. Oh my God. I feel very tall right now. This is sick. Okay, so it broke apart in the air and also none of the pieces made it. Whatever. We let that roll off our back. We make a new snowball and we return to the mountain. Oh my God, I'm so cold. I don't think I can physically throw that far without like putting my whole like into it, you know what I mean? And I can't do that when I'm standing on the bench. So we go again. Okay, this is a small one, but it's honestly a killer. Look at that. That could break a bone. That could dislocate a knee if we aimed it correctly. We're gonna throw really high in the air and just see what happens. Just throw the fucking ball. Put the ball on the tarp. God damn. I really wanted to like prove myself to you guys, but I guess I don't have that in me. We're just gonna throw it normally. I want to go home. Fuck. Oh my God, dude, no! I feel like I should do that thing where I draw like lines under my eyes, but in snow. Oh my God. It's so over, dude. Yeah, the wind's picked up. That's definitely why I've missed the last 5 snowballs in a row. I think it's because the wind's picked up. Thank you. Ah! God! Look! I did it!
Final replay, just a moment of glory for us all. Dead center. Look at that. Right on target. Wow. Beautiful. And it bounces off. There's no argument. That's clearly a star. And just a fantastic way to wrap up this video. Whenever I feel sad, it's good to know I can just always watch these clips of me hitting various gift bags with snowballs to make me feel better.
I don't even remember what I wrote down, dude. The adrenaline's been pumping for the last 5 minutes. If I got frostbite for a YouTube video, do you think that'd make for good content? Okay, the winner for this category is the strength of the few. Fucking W. So my camera person just said that they were going to, that they were going to drop a Mr. Beast style expose. All I have to say to that is, I can't even say that you're worthless with a straight face because of how helpful you've been today. So, you know what? Maybe you'll get a bonus. Maybe your holiday bonus will be like, I'll make you some cookies, give you a little like head pat or something. Wow. I feel like I'm in a billionaire romance and I'm like the main character who has just learned workers need insurance and like healthcare and, you know, a living wage in order to be able to successfully live and thrive inside of a major US city. And the only reason that I learned that is because like I'm dating the hottest peon worker that there's ever been. That's kind of like how I feel right now with my camera person teaching me how to see them as a person. So thank you for that.
This was a very successful TBR, by the way. I got like 4, I think, top choices, which is just, it's truly bonkers given if you've seen my bowling TBR, how that video went. But strength of the few. Yeah, I'm really excited to start this one. If you've never read The Will of the Many before, it is like stereotypical kind of testosterone fueled epic Roman fantasy. Like everything that comes to mind when I say those words is probably also true about this book. I feel like it's very self-selecting. You'll know if this is the kind of thing that you would have fun reading by if you're also the kind of person to like Marvel movies or to like shonen anime. Anything where you're basically just watching somebody level up and get really strong and navigate a complicated and changing political environment. That's the vibe of this kind of book. And I have a really soft spot for those types of books. I tend to really enjoy them, especially when they're appropriately action-packed because they're badass. Again, they make me feel like I could actually fight somebody and win, which is not true. But I don't know, man. Put me 150 pages into The Will of the Many and I'm like, yeah, Yeah, I could be a black belt if I really put my mind to it. I could totally like disarm somebody on the street if I saw another woman get attacked. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of way that reading this type of book makes me feel personally. I don't know if this is applicable to the rest of you, but what The Will of the Many is actually about, you're following a guy named, I think Vis is his name. Let me double check that. Okay, yeah, his name is Vis. You're following a guy named Vis, and Vis is kind of plucked out from obscurity by this noble inside of, again, this Roman Empire inspired fantasy state. And for reasons, the guy who plucks him up out of obscurity, out of being an orphan, and adopts him, he wants to send Vis to this magical military academy where he suspects something mysterious and kind of fucked is going on because there was an incident back in the day when he was at the school, and it's been covered up. Like nobody really knows what actually happened there. And the academy is so secure, it's so insulated from the rest of the world because it's basically on this like military stronghold island with no contact to anybody else outside of the island. So the only real way that this guy is able to investigate what's happening on the island is to literally send in a new student who can do his bidding for him. It's his only option in this situation. But the twist to all of this is that this is not who he appears to be. He's keeping this massive secret from this guy who has just adopted him. And honestly, nobody else in this book is really who they appear to be either. It's very much like character-driven, machinations, political fantasy, but also there's a lot of shit going on all of the time. It's got an academy. The magic system for this book is both honestly quite simple, but also a little bit difficult to describe succinctly. It's basically like you are tithing a portion of your life force to the people above you in the hierarchy, who can then call upon that magic, that life force of all of the people below them in order to do magic. But also they are tithing a small portion of their accrued collective life force to the people above them. I mean, it's like a pretty obvious metaphor for, you know, resource extraction or whatever. But it's also pretty interesting. I think that the way that it's done in the book is quite good. And yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect book in an objective sense, but I did give it 5 stars because to me, it was extremely entertaining. I had a really, really good time reading it. And I'm so pumped to keep going in book 2, considering how insane the ending of book 1 was. But yeah, that's the TBR. We've done it. That's everything that I'm going to be reading this winter.
Okay, we're done. It might seem like I'm kind of being a miser right now because I'm just really cold, but I actually kind of had fun doing this video because I love doing stupid shit for YouTube, and this is pretty dumb. This is pretty stupid. So I appreciate you like following me on this journey into this. The sun is just right there. I'm sorry. I'm like constantly winking during this segment. Because of the sun, but I love doing stupid things. So thank you for letting me do this stupid thing. I hope it was at least mildly entertaining for you, but I need to go inside or I honestly think my feet will freeze off. I feel like this is what people felt like on Oregon Trail when they were dying of exposure. We're like 5% of the way there. And honestly, that's like at least 3% further than I have the means to withstand on my own. So I'm gonna go inside before I have to amputate, but it's been real. I'm excited to read all these books. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know if you liked this, and I'll probably do it again with some other random bullshit that you honestly can't possibly predict, so don't even try. Okay. See you soon. Love you guys. Bye.